8 of your last 9 conference series victories. Just how do you feel like you guys are firing right now?
Pretty good. You know, guys are playing hard and they're getting rewarded for it. And Coach Hawk with the pitching, I mean, they're throwing the ball well. Back end bullpen has settled in, and we're doing enough to win. Playing good defense, and so yeah, I mean, really blessed and fortunate with how that went today.
Same result as last night, but looked a little different. What did you think of this one and how it all played out, and what are moments that stood out?
I mean, a little bit more power going on today, right? Ball leaving the ballpark, well, for both sides. I think that's kind of how the majority of the runs were scored. But just, you know, Masonville's one heck of a hitter, you know, and I hope he wins the Golden Spikes Award. You know, he's got a real chance. And you just saw it today. I mean, no matter what he's kind of getting locked in, right? I mean, you just see when a guy gets in the zone, and we've seen it, you know, throughout history, when a hitter gets there, it just looks like a huge beach ball coming in there, and it seems like that's kind of where Mason's at right now at the plate.
There's so much conversation about Mason and about RPI and seating and standing. How do you guys let things like that excite you without becoming too much of a big deal?
We got 4 games left. We're going to try to win them all. Like, you know, we've talked about the RPI and all that kind of stuff. I mean, our job's to win our games, and when we win our games, then, you know, we'll get rewarded.
How valuable was the outs that Santiago got you?
Well, he got the game ball today. I mean, you know, he walked the leadoff guy, and then after that he was dominant. Kind of touching, kind of feeling his way around the mound on the first hitter, and I don't think Coach Hawk liked that. He went out there, and I'm sure he gave him a hug and a kiss on the mound. I don't know if he really did that. He probably got on him pretty good, or whatever he said to him had a good effect. Let's leave it at that. And I was really happy with how Santi responded to you know, not really how you want to start when you come out of the bullpen.
What's kind of behind the last 3 weeks of the bullpen was? Because for as much as they were getting some heat earlier in the year, these last 11 games, by my count, it's like 41 innings and 5 runs allowed and 35 strikeouts. I
mean, Coach Hawk, he was patient with him. He probably an immature coach would have blown him up and probably lost him for the season, to be honest with you. And he didn't do that. He stayed with him. He knew that, you know, he felt like he wasn't doing a great job. He felt like the guys weren't living up to their potential, and instead of like pointing fingers and you know, name calling the players or any of that kind of stuff that we've seen, he didn't do that. You know, he was in here working nonstop, trying to get those guys right, coming up with ideas how we could better use them. He had a lot of great ideas. I think you're seeing that in terms of usage has changed. But ultimately, regardless of usage, you know, they weren't throwing the way they are throwing now, and so that has to come from the work the players are putting in and the work the coach is putting in, and that goes to the players and Coach Hawk. Yep.
We saw you really go to bat for Jacob there after the catch in the dugout. What does he mean to you into this program?
Well, he's going to win a Gold Glove at first base, and if he doesn't, it's a crime. I mean, the guy's ridiculous at first base, you know, and Dom Hellman's a heck of a first baseman too, and he just not as good as Jacob Walsh. You know, it was kind of like when we had Colby Shade and Bryce Betcher, who's better in center field, you know, and you have that argument, and you know, the guy that was out there starting just happened to be Colby Shade for a while when Bryce was behind him, but they were both awesome, and you saw it every day in practice, and that's kind of where Dom and Jacob are. Jacob's, you know, he's got records. I don't know what records he has, home runs or whatever he's got, and he deserves them all, but his bag work at first base and his hands and his feel, there's so many balls that are thrown over there that he just receives, and it makes him look so easy. And then today, that catch that he made off the top step, jumping and catching the ball in the dugout, I mean, just fearlessly doing it. We work on those plays all the time, but, you know, I can't tell you that we have ever had a pop-up in practice that mimicked the one he caught today. That was a Sports Center type catch, tremendous.
You mentioned Mason is locking in now.
Yeah.
You know, from our perspective, he's been locked in the entire year. It's 25 home runs, like you said, Golden Spikes candidate. From your perspective, where you see him every day, how can you tell that he's more locked in now than he was, I don't know, a week ago?
Well, he said he was tired of DH and I want to be in center field. And so for me, that's a really good sign because his presence on the ball field, you know, he's an unbelievably competitive young guy, right? And so if you take, it isn't like, you know, when you put somebody else in that they're less competitive, but Mason's, when you take a guy who could win the Golden Spikes Award off the field, you have to know that that's probably not the best case scenario. And so when he comes today and And it's been in his court, hey, how's it going? How you doing? And he's battled through some things now the last couple of weeks. And he just immediately said, hey, get me in the lineup. I want to be in center field today. He put down a drag bunt there at the end, and I really didn't want him to do that. But again, that's his confidence that says that if you're going to do that to me, I'm going to make you pay. And his plan was do that and then steal second base and turn it into a double right there probably. Without him even saying that, that's probably what he wanted to do.
You've had some excellent hitters, Buzz, but how many have you coached here that could nearly ring one off the opposite pole and then yank one down the right field line in successive pitches?
Brian Healy. Here, at the University of Arizona, there might have been a couple with Trevor Crow who finished, unbelievable player. Happens to be from the state of Oregon, Trevor Crow, who was a Golden Spikes Award. He finished second in the race back then. He could probably do it, maybe a couple others that I've coached. But it's really unique. The things he does is... And we knew that that's what he had in him potentially out of high school, and we recruited him like crazy, and we got beat. We got beat by Coach Van Horn, tremendous coach at Arkansas, and then when he was available, they had nothing but good things to say about him, but he was a little buried on their roster, I think. And boy, that's all we needed to know. That was a tremendous day when we found out he wanted to come here.
How would you describe the way Maddox is going about his business from the sideline or the stands? It just seems like his composure really stands out.
It does.
In high leverage innings, he manages to stay composed. How would you describe just the way he gets it done?
Just a real kind of low heartbeat guy. Under control. Doesn't get too excited. You don't see him celebrating. Kind of like he's a little bit opposite of Cole Stokes, right? Cole is a real excitable young guy that pitches his best when he's that way. And then Seth is probably a guy that's just, he's just a very low heartbeat kind of guy, and it seems like things are usually very under control with him.
That error in the fourth tied the game, and then eventually led you guys getting the lead, and then it was kind of off to the races from there. How important is it for you guys that you guys can go down early, and then once there's a window of opportunity, you guys kick the door down? How important is that going?
That was the whole key to the game, right? For us to be able, they could have quit. Conor Clark, after his first inning, he could have just, I've seen pitchers that don't have a great first inning and then they just bag it and they kind of quit on themselves. And he didn't do that. He battled, and what did he give us, five innings and gave up only 4 hits. Wasn't a perfect outing, but his competitiveness, I was really proud of Colin. When he didn't have his best stuff, his competitiveness was there. We wouldn't have won without him, Santiago, and then the hitters, overall, their toughness to be able to bounce back and come back from being behind.
How do you evaluate the risk reward and the attempted steal for Drew there in the 6th?
We didn't think there was a risk. We just didn't execute what we wanted to do. And so, for me, it was, I'll take the blame. My fault. I wanted to see Anson hit right there. I felt like he was kind of really put a good swing on a ball right there. And I wanted to be worth 2 runs, and I thought it was a no-risk play, and it ended up being out of the inning, which I was disappointed.
So you're hoping for a hit and run, not just a straight steal?
No, I wanted to steal second base, and then I wanted to score him with a hit afterwards, and we just didn't execute it well enough, and I got to better prepare our guys to be able to come through there.
We saw Chase with 2 knocks today, 2 hard hit balls. We saw him get into one over against St. Mary's as well, opposite field. But how do you feel like he's coming along? Obviously, he had his injuries earlier in the year. How do you feel like he's coming along in that catcher spot?
Well, that's 2-3 games in a row now where he's contributed offensively, and he caught a win. And I nothing against what Burke's done, Mabius, and then Cohen Nikolai. He's doing some pretty good things when he gets an opportunity to play as well. But I got to believe that Chase, with his experience, going down this stretch run, has got to be a really key piece of this thing going forward. The leadership of what he's done and the experience has got to play a factor. And I can't predict it, but I got to believe that getting him going at this time may be a real big lift for what we're doing.